Okay, we're live.
Is it frozen again?
Sorry?
Go on.
Okay, my name is Jim Stinger. I'm the president of the San Francisco chapter of the Society of West Coast Artists, and this is our live demo with Ellen Howard showing us how to paint marshes. So I want to do a little introduction of Ellen. Ellen is recognized for her tranquil and peaceful landscape paintings. Her paintings reflect the beauty that is found in nature. Growing up in New England in an artistic family, Ellen was always inspired by the arts. It was only after her career in venture capital and finance, a move to Northern California, and after her kids began elementary school that she got the opportunity to pursue her desire to create. She is passionate about evoking mood or emotion in her paintings. True enjoyment comes from capturing the light as it spreads across a scene. Some of her favorite subjects are marshes, areas along the Pacific coast, vineyards, and incredible skies at sunset and before or after storms. I strive for my paintings to engage the viewer and evoke a sense of connection, create a stillness that transports the onlooker to a tranquil place. Each painting is unique and an expression of that mood or energy expressed at that time. From the mouth of Ellen Howard, who is now going to demo how to do marshes. Ellen, take it away.
Hi everybody. Thank you so much, Jim and Sharon and everybody at Society of West Coast Artists. Brings back a lot of memories for me because it was really the first place that I exhibited as an artist, I guess about 10 years ago. And it was a great experience for me. And I demoed here a couple of years ago. I've been a judge here. So it's a great local organization, and I'd love for you guys, if you're in the area, to stop by. They have a great exhibit up in the gallery right now. They'll be on view until mid-December. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of my marsh scenes. I always tell my students to paint something that you love, because if you're drawn to that subject matter, usually your paintings are going to be much better. So I actually started out plein air painting more at the marshlands and the baylands. And so that's my first love, is kind of doing the marsh scenes and creating reflections in water. So over here is one of the paintings, Beyond the Light, that I created actually during COVID. It's for the Great American Paint-In. It's an organization and a traveling exhibition for artists all over the country, creating artwork during the sheltering in place. And so this, I was talking about the Baylands. This is a quick 8 by 16 painting that I actually demoed. I was doing plein air classes this summer, so I demoed this painting. So I enjoy painting the marshes. Today, actually, I'm going to paint this scene. It's an 11 by 14 right here. And you know, I just love the colors of the back trees and just the reflections that I got here in the water. So some of my process, actually, when I'm starting, I obviously do go plein air painting, but I do start with a sketch. And usually I have my students start this way also. You can kind of work out your design and see where things are working, see how your values are working. The next thing I usually do is do a value study. And what I found is recently these canvas pads, they're really simple. You just rip them off, and I kind of tape them up to my board here, and it gives me a good reference for that also. So I recommend doing that before you start your painting. So my process is I'll do a wash, I'll do some color mixing, and I'll walk you through it. So let's have some fun and paint. Okay, so first thing I'll do here is I love my Gamsol. I'll take my transparent red oxide. I like to get it really wet. I always put my third marks up on canvas. It just gives me a reference of where I'm going here. And then I do where the third marks meet, it's called like the golden mean. So usually if you look at a lot of the artwork, it's where most of the center or focal points most artists put. So it just gives me a reference. So I'm referring to my painting right here. So we want to make sure that we're not in the middle. You know, if you have a problem with that, you can mark that also. But I'm going to be, I think, about here, where that water line is ending here. And then we're going to go through here. So take some time when you're designing. It's easy to wipe things off and start again. So if you don't take the time in the beginning to compose correctly, you're going to be a little frustrated with your painting. So you want to make sure too that what I'm looking for right now is I don't want my 2 points to meet. So I'm kind of looking at the shape as I go. I want to make sure this could be a little bit lower. I'm looking at my spacing right now between the two. So I'm coming down. And I'm always open to questions. There's somebody here that if you want to type in a question, I'm happy to answer. Okay, I'm going to continue to go up. So I'm about here. Okay, so what I'm looking for is I want to make sure that I'm designing interesting shapes. So I have this tree kind of going off the page here. It's kind of tall and skinny. I have some back trees peeking through. This tree here is a different size. I've got some bushes in the front. So I'm looking at all these shapes. I don't want my trees to be lollipop trees. I want to pay attention to creating an interesting painting. So this one, like I said, is going to go off the page here. It's going to kind of come down. And there's also smaller bushes kind of in the front here. This is kind of coming over a little bit more. This one's not going off the page. I like these. It's kind of more like a eucalyptus with these little pom-poms coming off the edge of the tree. And usually the edge of the tree kind of tells you a little bit more about the characteristics of the tree. So I'm coming down through here. I want to make a little bit of room for the back trees here. And I want to talk a little bit about the canvases too. Let me just get the basic drawing in here first. So this tree is not quite as high. It's kind of coming down this way also. So I have this needs to come down. We want overlaps. So these trees are in front. They're going to have more vibrant colors, warmer colors in front. As we're going back, these back trees are going to be cooler in nature, cooler colors. So I spent a lot of time when I was preparing for this, working on the cooler colors, which are the viridians and kind of the cooler blues. So this is coming down here a little bit taller, sloping down. This is kind of in front here. I always like this kind of backwater area coming in through here, like the marshes coming up. So in this painting, I'm trying to direct you. It's hard to see with the things in front here, but I'm trying to direct your eye from this light coming through here, coming up and having the cloud, the brightness of the cloud coming down. So I also thought that I could add some more interest too by adding some birds coming through here, but I'm just going to keep it this way right now. So I'm trying to always look at my paintings and find, you know, how can I improve them? What can I add? What can I leave out? So I love my clouds. And so I have a little bit of a cloud coming through here, shape. So I've got kind of my basic shape in. It's going to be a little bit more organic. I kind of get it in, and then I do a wash, um, and then it changes a little bit. But what I want to talk about is the canvases here. This canvas I used to paint here, and it's a linen, and it's pretty slippery, and I've been having some frustrations with this type of canvas. And I was actually teaching a workshop all this past week, so I didn't have, usually I like to do my wash and then paint right on top, but I didn't have the time. So I did my wash and I had to wait a day to come back. But what was awesome about that is my wash set up, which meaning it was completely dry. And you can see here that there's a lot of the wash coming through. There's different vibrations of the colors coming through. So with linen, a lot of times when you put a brush stroke down, it lifts it up. You have to be very soft with the amount of paint that you put on. But waiting a day for this to dry, I kind of love the effect I got. So I ordered a bunch of these, and I'm now kind of excited to use them because what I'll just do is I'll make sure that my wash is dry. So conversely, I'm using a cotton canvas here. It's Pintura. It's not as slick. So I know from using this that with the turf that I use, it's going to dry a little bit faster than it is with the linen. And just because I'm doing a demo and I don't have the time to, have it go dry, I'm using the linen, the cotton canvas. So I like putting this warmth in my sky. It's a transparent red oxide. So the skies are generally blue, but it's nice when you have a little bit of warmth coming in. It gives it a nice vibration. By doing the wash, I can also see where my shapes are coming. So I know that this is where my sky is coming right through here. So it might be a little bit more right here, but that's generally how it's coming. So I can see that my shapes already, I've got a taller one kind of coming through here, and I don't have as much space over here. So that's something I can already see. I also like to just put that wash in the water, get some warmth in the water, because it generally tends to be cooler colors in the marshland. So I've already got a base. That's kind of my shape. There's also water kind of coming back from here, my lighter value. Right. I'm going to mix my sap green into this red oxide mixture here. A lot of times with the trees, you can see from my reference here, you want to keep your darker layers thinner usually, and you want to have your lighter colors, thicker paint on top. It's a nice layering effect. You can also use palette knife. I kind of like to play and see what different effects I can get on the canvas. So I know this is going to be my dark. It's going to be warmer because it's going to be more of my front trees here. I love creating the air holes too in the trees. So this also, my light is going to be coming from the right side. So that's always important to make sure that you pay attention to that. You don't want the light of your trees here and the cloud light over here. You want to have everything be consistent. So again, I'm looking at my shape here. This connects here. To me, the color changes slightly. So I'm going to put a little bit of that cobalt blue in there. Just giving a little bit of color change. It's always a balance. You don't want to get this, it almost looks like a watercolor wash. You don't want to get it too wet that it's not going to set up and dry by the time you want to paint. But also, you want it to have some fun qualities too. You want it to drip a little bit, or at least I like that effect. I'm going to take the cobalt blue again, some viridian, for my back trees. I usually put a touch of red in because I know that I don't want it to be too vibrant a color right now. So I've got this peeping in here, this back trees in here. I'm constantly looking at my shape. You know, is the shape pleasing? I'm going to add a little bit of the ultramarine blue in here. And so we've got this coming through here. And sometimes I just like to mix those colors up, have a little more variety. So you can see that here. I've got another tree pattern coming in here, but I'm going to wait to add that. So again, I'm going to take more of my warm tones on this side. I think one thing that's helped me as an artist is I'm pretty curious. You know, I've learned that just to try new things and keep open to it. And I tell my students, don't get frustrated. Have a positive attitude. You know, something in your painting didn't go as expected. Kind of evaluate your painting and be like, okay, well, I like this one tree. I don't like how I did this color here, and learn from it and try to do things a little bit differently next time. But always look for the positive, and it'll help. Your mindset will help you a great deal. Okay. I leave my clouds generally white because I've just learned that when I put a wash under my cloud, the clouds tend to be a little bit more luminous, that it dulls the color down too much. So I'm going to change brushes, and this marsh area, I love these reflections. So this is kind of the fun part. I'm taking that trans red again, maybe a little ultramarine blue. And I think I'm getting it too wet. Here we go. So anyway, there's these marshy banks that come here. So I kind of have a flat brush, this edge work here. I want to make sure, it's funny when you learn from people, some teachers like, remember to make your lines interesting. And I remember when I first started painting marshes, I had this wonderful teacher, and I used to make kind of like alligator points. And he'd go, I don't make alligators yet. So there's just funny things that happen when you start painting, but it reminds me always to pay attention to those shapes and not get those alligators in there. So I'm just putting the sap green here, kind of coming through here. Reflections are kind of hard. You lose your boundaries a little bit. So a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm pulling the paint down vertically. So when I do my reflections, I always pull the paint down vertically to start with. And then at the end, I'm laying color over it. So what I'm looking for is this tree is kind of coming in through here. So these trees are kind of coming in through here. These lines will change a bit, but I want to get this color in. So what's happening here is I'm getting more of these cooler colors. So I'm going to put a little bit of cooler colors in that water reflection. It's pretty wet, so I'm hoping that it sets up a little bit more. And even having to do a little bit darker. All right, so obviously I have to get in some foreground color here. I try to tend to get it a medium value in there, and then I lighten it up from there. So I'm doing some paints, some yellow ochre and some sap green, maybe a touch of red here. So it's too close to my other colors. I'm going to stick yet some more yellow in there. It's a little dark. I like the foreground usually is a little bit darker, so I will go and have some more of my darker values down here usually. So I'm getting my whole canvas covered right here, and you can kind of see my shapes already. So at this point, a lot of times, well actually I always pre-mix my colors, I'll show you how to do that. One benefit of doing that is this sets up, it dries a little bit. The other benefit is that you're away from your painting, meaning that you can kind of come back and evaluate, are the shapes working, is the design working? So I'll go in here, I like to kind of re-establish my marsh lines a little bit. I've got a smaller brush that I'm working with. And move this up slightly. Okay. I'm looking at my bushes back here. I believe I can have these darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more wash onto that. I like being able to get them dark enough where I can layer lighter colors on top. And sometimes you do have to add a little bit more onto it. The wash kind of drips too much. I'm also looking for, I don't want any hard edges. I have another kind of area where my bushes are coming in the back here. So I'm just going to draw that in just to remind me it's coming in. This is definitely over farther, this bunch here. So I have less space in here than my original, but that's okay. All right. So at this point too, some of the air holes with the trees, I can bring that design, take some of these paper towels, you can dip into your turf and you can change some of these shapes. So that's another way to do it too. So I have smaller trees coming in here. So I know right now this is not dark enough. You can see how some of the transparency is dripping, which I kind of like. So, all right, so what I do now is I'm just going to wipe off my whole canvas here. I don't use the turf on my next spot. So one thing I really love to do is mix color. A lot of my students know this, and if they're having a hard time with color, I love coming by and helping them with it. It's really important to get a variety and to have temperature changes within your colors. So I usually start with the sky actually. So on this painting, I've got
orbit ultramarine. The light is coming from the right side here, so my sky is a lighter value. Over here it's darker. The light's hitting this way. So I'll start with the ultramarine. I know it's a darker blue for me. And I tend to mix a little bit dark. So I know this. So a lot of times I will have to lighten some of these up. Okay. So this coloring through here, I'm going for cerulean. So lighter, kind of cooler coming through here. And then my clouds, I love my clouds. There's probably like 6 colors in my clouds, but I like making my own purples. I tend to like the ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and then some white. A lot of times it's too strong. It's too vibrant. As you can see, I'm turning it red. I tend to like more of the blue tones. So I'm just going to add more blue to this. And then I tend, opposite of purple is yellow. I tend to go to my yellow ochre because I don't want to change it that much. I want to dull down the color, but I still want to get a little bit of that purple coming through. So I can tell it's a little bit dark, but I like to have it dark to start with. This is kind of a Seignelier color that I love. I'm going to script the name, but Monolithic Ochre. I love this for my clouds. It gives it a beautiful warmth. That's where I got this kind of glow coming in through here. I also tend to put a little bit of gray in my clouds. This is a little bit bright, but I know I'm going to need some of it in my water, so I'm going to keep it a little bit darker also, and add a little bit of white here. So I'm going to take some of my light Gamblin gray. So the Gamblin, so I have tons of colors on my palette. People kind of laugh at me with all the colors I have, but I love my colors. So for my value studies, I use the Gamblin dark, medium, and light colors. So my clouds, I just sometimes I put a little gray in there, but it's usually not that straight gray. I usually add a little bit of purple to it. So I will go down now into, I actually tend to go for my warmer tree colors first, and it helps me decide the back tree colors. So generally, a lot of this is sap in here, so I'll take my sap green. I tell my students, you always put red in your greens. They're just too garish if you don't tone them down a bit, and they don't look as natural. So I've got my dark here. I'm going to kind of take the same mixture, which is my sap, a little bit of the red oxide, and again, yellow ochre in here. And I know I need to get a little bit brighter. So I actually had some fun with this. I had more time, so it's hard to see, but I had some viridian in here too, some of these cooler greens on top of these warmer greens, which is really kind of fun. So I'm going to take some of the viridian with the yellow ochre here. A little bit of red, and see how green that is? It's not pleasing to me. I'm taking a little bit of red in there. So you can see how much cooler this is and how much warmer this one is. To me, I still need a little bit more red in there. So I'll just do 3 colors right now. I'm going to move back into these. This is kind of what I had fun with. These purple, blue sages, turquoise colors in here. So I will start with that purple again. So I'm going to take the ultramarine blue and some of the cad red. The cad red neutralizes your purple a little bit more than the cooler alizarin. And so I just know that purple is one of my favorite colors to mix. And I can see it's a little bit bluer, so a little bit more of the ultramarine in there. So these beautiful sages back there. We usually do the Viridian and the cobalt blue and some white and see how that goes. So again, it's a little bit too vibrant for back there. Sticking a little red in there to neutralize it a bit. Still a little vibrant. I'm going to put some sap in there. Those are the more difficult colors for me to get, those back tree colors. So you can already see that I'm too green. Take your time to mix too. You know, it makes a big difference. You get the colors right. You know, I will adjust when I'm on there, but so I will take some of the cobalt, ultramarine, a little bit of the orange. I kind of want a blue back there too. And what I'm also looking at as I make these colors, I'm looking at my palette constantly. Every color relates to each other. So I'm looking at these, is there something sticking out here that's super garish? You know, are these harmonizing well together? You know, this one is a little bit gray right now, and I wanted to go back there and stick it more viridian in there. Maybe a little more blue. Yes, I'm kind of getting that color right now. Okay. So, got my cloud. I'm going to start doing some of this foreground color in here. So I love this cad green. And it looks super, see how it's popping out with all these other colors? So I know right now that if I just stuck that color on my painting, it's not going to work with all the other colors. But I love when I mix it with the yellow ochre is great with it. And I also love it with orange. It makes a really good foreground color in here.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
It says, what was the gray medium used in the value sketch?
Oh, the value sketches are all done with the Gamblin grays, the three grays, the dark, medium, and light Gamblin grays. Yeah. So, and they're wonderful tools, and I basically, it's a great thing to work on because it really forces you, you only have three values. If you want your sky to be light, and then you think your mountain's light, you've got to change it usually to get the proper composition and have it read right. My back trees here, I have a little bit darker value in my finished painting. And I also at the end will use a touch of white or a touch of black to use the accents, but I didn't do a lot of that on that painting. It's a really good exercise to try. This is a little bit too orange for me here. I can see from my colors. I'm putting more of this cad green in here and a little bit of yellow too. So I know I also need kind of a medium green for what I'm doing. So I'll take that sap again with some ochre and a little bit of the red. I'm trying to match my color, but I'm not going to be exact. Sometimes I'm like, okay, what if I change the color a little bit? How does that view on my painting? So these blues, I had fun kind of doing these gray blues in the water. So I started again with my ultramarine and a little bit of the orange in there. I love my Payne's gray too. Payne's gray is more of a transparent color, and it will just tone down your color without taking that blueness away. So it's not that garish blue, it's toned down a bit. So this is a little bit too dark, but I think I can use it in some other parts of my painting, so I'm just taking a little bit of it over here and adding some more white to this here. I also had some yellows in my water too. So I'm kind of checking out my colors. To me, this one's a little bit vibrant, but I want that to pop out for my lights in there. I might use another color through here. I'm taking a little bit more of my green out of here and putting some yellow over it also. And more blue. And a touch more white. Okay, I think that's a pretty good start. I'm going to, I'll adjust as I go, but you can kind of see all these colors are formulating pretty well. These are a little bit bright here, so I'll have to see how they kind of handle on top of the wash. So I will start with my sky. So I'm going to start with my mixture here. I do use this Gamblin, it's called gel solvent, sorry. And sometimes when it's cold, it's a little cold in here, my paints will set up, meaning they're thicker. So I don't want them to be as thick. I want to have them be a little bit more transparent as I go in. So I'm looking at that shape. It's not the same shape. So I also go in negatively. I kind of sculpt into that shape when I paint too. Woohoo, color! You gotta have fun when you're doing it, you know? There's definitely learning the skills, but I think when you have an attitude of this is fun, you're more apt to paint more. A lot of things I do too to learn a new skill is I'll just, there was a time where I love my clouds. I was just painting cloud shapes. So I was just splitting my canvas into like 4 little spots, like little 6x8s, and doing different cloud scenes with different colors and trying to work on my shapes. So that's another tool you guys can use that will help you. So I'm watching my shape here. I'm trying to get the blue as close, but my shape is going to change slightly as I go in. But it's kind of fun to start seeing the outlines in these trees. So underneath, I have that kind of lighter color. It might be a little bit light. For some reason, the cerulean just changes really quickly when you add the white to it, so be careful. Maybe a little bit added too much. Okay, so underneath this cloud, sky is changing a bit. I'm coming in here. My shades are slightly different from my original. From here. I kind of work on edges towards the end, but I'll show you some of the things I do with the cloud colors. I mean, the tree shapes. So I just wanted you to see the color change over here. My painting, I can tell, is pretty wet, so I'm picking up some of the green. So just be careful when you're painting that you're not picking up some of the other colors. All right, so I got my cloud shape. It's not looking like much right now. So I'm going to come back with this purple color shadow underneath it. This side is going to be darker, just because it's a little bit too dark. the light is not hitting the left-hand side as much as it's hitting the right-hand side. You want to be careful of tangents too. You don't want the top of the tree to hit. So I'll be moving that down a little bit. Kind of coming through here. So I'm going to go back to my sky color. And I want it to be a little bit more blue down here so that tree is more defined. Okay, we've got a little bit of blue kind of peeking through here. So I'm going to take some of the warmth that I have for this cloud, and we're going to start putting it in a little bit. It's a little bit bright. So I might take a little bit of that gray. Yeah. There's more. I worked on this quite a bit. The clouds to me need to be soft, and you need to do kind of a lot of blending with the clouds. So I actually painted them a little bit, and then I kind of came back and added some more color. So I'm taking my gray, little gray in here. And one thing that I did not mix with this one is I did have some yellow in there. So that top of the cloud, I did a bit of yellow. Just taking my cat yellow. You don't need a lot of yellow to really change that color. You don't want it too yellow. So I'm coming in. At the end of this painting, I did go back in. I put a little bit of white just on the edges. To create that light. So that's kind of how my clouds start, to be honest. And then I love these brushes by Rosemary. It's usually an 8 or 9. I think they're mongoose hair. They're very soft. So I just start coming back in and blending these edges. I want to get these to be wispy and soft, and I want to blend these colors. So this one is a little bit more gray, so I'm just taking a little more gray on my brush. I don't want hard edges under my clouds. I think my purple needs to be softer down here. This is where I'll spend a lot of time just doing these edges here. And then if I don't like the shape, so I can see that I'm going up, this is a funky shape down there. You can go back in and fix it a little bit. Sometimes I want that straight line going down to my clouds, and sometimes I want it to be a little more organic. So I will come back, and I work both ends of it, or both sides of it. So I have that sky color. If I don't like the shape, I just kind of come in, okay, that's not pleasing to me. Have the shape, have the blue of the sky come back in. I want to change it a little bit. So I will keep working on this until I get the shape that I like. Is this coming over? Is this popping up too much? I should have one over here. This can come up a little bit higher. So I'll kind of leave it about like this, and I'll go on to the rest of the painting, and then I'll kind of reevaluate at the end. But I'm getting my light in. A little bit more light. Whoops. Picked up too much yellow. A little more white in there. All right, let's get into some of the trees. So, as you can see, I always play with my edges here. Okay, so I'm going to change brushes again. I tend to like the filberts, the rounder brushes to do trees, and so I'm just switching to that. I'm going to take my darkest value and just see how it goes. I did not get enough dark transparency on here, so I need to darken this area. So again, my light's coming from the right side, so I want my shadow area to be more in here. I'm going to put a little bit more of the red in here. A lot of times too, you want to connect. So I like that this whole shape is kind of connecting in here. And I was teaching last week, I was trying to get the students to really pay attention to their shapes, to have a larger shape, kind of medium and supporting shapes to their canvases. So this is going down here. My shapes are changing a bit. I know that if I can get this in a little bit darker, I like the lights on top. When I painted this, I fooled with the shape quite a bit. A little bit bigger over here. Okay. I'm going to put the same, I've got more of a warm tone over here. I can tell I put more of a iridium and cooler tones over here. But I am going to start with that dark over on the side also. It's very green to me still. I'm adding a little bit more red. It's very slippery, I can tell, so it's pretty wet still for me. So you can start seeing it take a shape here. Yeah, my cloud's a little bit bigger on this one. All right, I'm going to get some of my back tree colors in right now. So I'm actually going to put some of the purple in. I didn't do this the last time. I kind of put the end. It's still pretty wet back there. The problem with your canvas being wet and not having some time to dry is it can be very ginger putting in these colors because as you see it's pulling up. So I'm picking up that blue color on top of the purple, and the problem with that sometimes is you're creating mud if you're going to blend it too much. So if you're trying this approach with the washes underneath, give yourself a little bit more drying time, or just be aware the color's going to pull up. So, now what I'll do here, this is that back color. I put a couple different colors here. So what I'm looking for is I'm again negatively going, how's the shape relating to the shape in the front here? So how far is it coming down? Is it coming over? If I make this stroke, it's outlining that other tree shape. Granted, I did not put my lights on that tree, but this is what I'm thinking about when I'm painting. Each shape relates to the other shape.
It's about 5 minutes till 2, so whenever it feels convenient to take a little break.
Okay, well, they're telling me I'm gonna take a little bit break. So, if you've got any questions, type them in and I'm happy to answer them. Thank you. Time's going by quick.
I'm not sure what to pause it, so it's still screen.
Okay, okay. All right, guys, so I'm back. I'm still painting. I'm trying to create some air holes in here and some better shapes to my sky. But I just wanted to get, I'm not going to be able probably to finish this for you, so I'm just trying to get some of the lights on the trees right now, so you can get more of that tree shape coming in. So it's definitely warmer in front here.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Um, do you ever have trouble with arthritis in your hands and wrists? And if so, what do you do about it?
I'm lucky that I haven't had that so far. My right shoulder, because I'm constantly doing this, sometimes gives me a problem. Um, I'm type of person that I kind of ignore those things a bit, and I kind of get lost in the moment. So, usually it's at night where I'm like, oh, that hurt a little bit, but not so far. There's some, I guess the icy hot rubs and things like that, but yeah, it hasn't been an issue. I think as a plein air painter, sometimes you're always standing, and it's a little bit more, strenuous on the body, especially if you're out with wind, having wind and things like that. So I'm just trying to get some lights on these trees so you can see a little bit how, but you need to really think about your shapes and how it's going to go. So obviously, I do not have any of my tree trunks in there, any of those details. I'm going to put a little bit of the gradient green on this side so you can just see a little bit of the transition. But I know we need to get down to our marsh area. So, let's see. It's a little bit green, too vibrant green, a little more red in there. But by just changing this a bit, so the light's coming this way. So to me, it could become a little lighter. And then to get this a little darker in here too. But again, it's a little bit wet, so the paint is not holding from as much here. All right, let me get this front bush area in really quick. There's a darker area underneath, so I'm really trying to pay attention to that shadow area underneath. And I want this to overlap over here. I want my tree to end about here. So I'll keep working this. Like, to me, this needs to go down more dark through there. I kind of like that being darker through there in the back. So painting is a lot like problem solving here. You just you keep looking at the shapes and trying to adjust it. What if I change this? Would this be better? What if I change that? Okay, let's get down. My reflections I can see, they're not as dark as I need them to be. So I'm going to go back and reestablish that a little bit because I know that I need to have a darker base underneath there. So what I'm looking for is already this little area here. This should be more blue because this is reflecting down that other color. So always be aware of what those reflections are reflecting. So obviously this darker green is in here. But I do have, I'm going to put the darker green on the other side, so this darker green is reflecting down here. I prefer working on canvas panels rather than the wrapped canvas. I don't like when my brush, I like when I put my brush down and it's firm. The canvas to me, if there's too much bounce, so I prefer this. Plus they travel a lot better than carrying around the big wrap. And even this big one over here, it's on a larger panel. All right, so I'm putting this in. So we obviously don't want to get this strikiness in here, but I'm not finished yet. I'm getting this darker blue kind of coming through here. So I'm looking at these colors, and these colors are what I need to have reflected down here. I didn't clean my brush, so I'm picking up some of that kind of brown green, which sometimes is good and sometimes it's not. So you can see if I finish painting, I have a variety of colors in there. I kind of want to make sure that these are soft. I'm going to put, just so you can see what's going on here, this back waterline real quick. So I want that to be a little farther down. So I'm going to move that back. And if it's something, just adjust if it's too thick on one side. Bring my blue down here. This back area is definitely not finished, but I just want you to see how that, just putting that color in there. So, let's see. All right, let me get some of this base color in here also for the marsh. So this back color to me is a little bit cooler. I know I don't quite have it here. It's generally, I like this kind of cad green and buff titanium with a touch of red in there. Too much red. Going back. A little more green. Okay. A little light. So I'm looking at the rest of my palette. What can I put in there? A lot of times this will help your paintings harmonize a bit better too. It's still a little bit light, but I'm going to go with it. I also have kind of a shadow under there. Let's see if I can get close to that. So if I put a touch more red into my already purple mixture, let's see what I get. It's a little purple. I'm going to put some Phoenix gray and knock it down just a little bit. So I just want a little bit of a shadow. The sun's coming this way. A little bit of a shadow coming in there. I've not put any light on these bushes yet. Okay, let's go back to our marsh color. Yeah, I need a little bit more oomph there. So let's put, I'm going to take, actually I'm going to put a little bit of darkening down here first. A little bit here. All right, let's get back up there. This is a little bit orange. Let's see what's happening. Okay. That's better. I can tell it's cooler at a cooler up here. So I'm putting some cobalt in it, a little bit more white. Let's see what we got. Yeah, I kind of like that better. A little bit darker, coming through here. Need to have more of a easier transition. It's jumping too much, you can see that. But I kind of like this color a bit. So maybe I'll put this down here as my darker. And let's transition that a bit better. So a lot of times these marshes kind of come over through here. It has that effect. It's like these small little details that make it feel more marsh-like. So that I can tell this is too purple. I'm doing this fast. Underneath here. Just want to get some color in here for you guys. So these reeds are kind of coming from front here. So I've got some basic color in there. This still needs a lot of work. But I'm going to come back in with some more of this detail in the marsh. So I'm taking my flat brush again. This is what's super fun. I love doing, so you just kind of come up and make these edges. And again, it's back and forth. I don't want it to be a straight line, I want it to be a little more organic. So this marsh is coming up a bit here. And a lot of times you can kind of pull it down a little bit. I'm kind of working it all over the place here. So I can tell I'm a little bit too transparent down here. I want it darker. So all these little details, they start to add up. I don't want to make it regular. So I've kind of got, this is really my second pass, if I'm honest. I've got the wash in, this is like the second layering of color, and then I kind of go on again with the third layer, thicker paint, more color. So right now, I want to show you some of the reflections of the marsh here. So I will take some viridian in here. I'm looking at some of these colors that are coming down. I'm looking at these colors in here, and this color in here. Some of this is coming down from here. This color is coming down, it's a lighter green. So when I have more of those highlights on here, the green is changing. I'm going to get some reflections in here. So, let's see. I know this edge right now is a little bit too sharp. So what I do right now is a lot of times I'll take that really soft brush that I use for the the clouds. Oh, I have a green problem today.
Nice.
Okay, usually it's a yellow problem. Oops. Okay. So I told you you had the verticals coming down for this section. Now it's time to take that soft brush and kind of go across. It usually sets the water down. It's looking like reflections coming on top of that water. So I'll spend a lot of time softening this and bringing it down. As you can see, there's a lot more colors in here. So to see how that kind of shimmers by just coming around that way. So my edges here, this should be slanting down more through here. And sometimes you do lose your edges when you're doing these reflections. So what I was doing with this one too is I usually don't like when the paint lifts up on me, but I was kind of having fun with the different, see it's lifting up on me too. So I'm trying to be fine with those kind of happy accents that come in. I have this great little marsh brush. It's I think it's like a quarter inch, and it's like a dagger. It's angled. And so what I do with the marshes is I take the gel solvent and I kind of stick it in the lighter colors, and I'll play with these edges in here to create a little bit more of that marsh effect. So the reeds, you don't want to do it everywhere, but that reed effect is really fun. So this is the area that I had kind of coming over. The sun's hitting this side here. So I kind of had this the light coming over here a little bit more. And these reeds kind of coming up this way. And then what's fun you can do too is have some of these reeds be in this reflection here too. So I also come back and I work on this line. It's too uniform. So sometimes just playing around with that angle with the other colors. You can get a nice effect on that. I like the overlap, like I said. So right here in front, I came up with the reeds coming here too. So these are all things that I kind of work around the canvas. So I like having that dark underneath so I can kind of come up and do the reeds. So that all these little details are starting to bring it forward. So I do not have as much color in this area. So let me see if I can put a little more color in here for you. So it's a lighter blue. I think this is a little bit dark. Yep. We'll see. So I have that sky color in, and then I have some of this warmth coming in over here from the reflection of the cloud. So some of this is coming this way. So you can see, you keep building it. And it's very wet right now, so I don't want to dirty up my brush. So I'm kind of being careful on how much pressure I'm giving it. These create great water lines in here, so just make sure your value doesn't jump out too much. I don't want to put my brightest bright over there, so I'm not trying to draw you over here. I want my brights to be over here. What I would pay attention to is, this is pretty straight. I'd like to have another one kind of come down through here. And then it starts getting a little bit brighter as I'm moving more towards my focal. I can have it be a little bit thicker there. And then I can start having this color come through here. So this type of stuff at the end is really what takes a lot of time. And what I'm not doing because I'm demoing is I need to step back. So now that I step back, I can see that this value here is too light for me. So I'd like to have it a bit darker. So a lot of times in class, what I'll do is I call it go bother your neighbor, which means to me, get up, put your brush down, take a break, and I found that it's, it gives the students a way to look, get away from their painting and come back with fresh eyes. And it also builds, the art community. People get to know each other, look at other people's paintings, find some solutions to what they're doing. So this is how it all started. As you can see, I'm already getting this kind of cool effect here. So I keep going back in. I'll take my brush, my soft brush again, and I'll drag it down. So I'm getting a nice effect. So over here too, I have take a smaller brush, find my waterline. So let's see, I want it to angle down. So again, I can come in, this is too thick for me. So come back in here, break these reeds up with that background color. And just play with those shapes a little bit. You want more light on there? You can take that small brush again and get just a little bit more light and have that reflection coming into it. So it gives you a little bit of idea. This angle down here, it's very straight. So I'd come back in here again. Okay, we're going to break right there. Change that shape. Is that better? Yeah, I think it's better. Have it break this way too. All right, it's too much together there. So I will come back in with some yellow ochre maybe, a little green. And I'll come back in and just break it again. One thing I had to watch too is don't have all the reeds go in the same direction. You have some this way, some that way. Like this is a little bit too static here. Some reeds go up here. You want to break this up over here. So I'm constantly looking at my shapes. Maybe this needs to go back farther here. But this is the stuff at the end that takes a lot of time. So I'm already getting a pretty good feel. I don't like this boxiness of it right here. Back here it was smaller and I had a better shape. So it's pretty easy. All I'm going to do is maybe move this down a little bit. Change the shape. And maybe I'll have this overlap a little bit more, a little bit bigger than I had before. So maybe I'll have this come down a little bit more. We'll have the green come down maybe a little bit more here. So that to me is a better shape. This is too much reflection still here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that blue, set it down again. Maybe I need a darker blue there. Oh, actually, that's where my focal is, so I think a little lighter. And I'm using the wrong brush, so that would help to use a different brush. So I'm going to lighten this up here. Sometimes you get old paint and there's too much white coming in here. So I need to bring some more color in here. Lighter blues. Yeah. I'm actually going to go back a little more time, so I'm going to go back up and work on my trees a little bit more. I still have more work to do on this reflection, but you can see I'm getting a nice reflection here, a nice reflection here. I'm starting to build some color in. Sometimes I wait till the next day to put kind of warm colors in because I like that it sits on top and I don't, blue and kind of this, I mean, it's an ochre, it's a reddish color, but they're opposites and I do not want to lose my color here and have it be mudded down. So let me go back up into these trees and give them a little bit more character here. So it's like, which brush do I use? So to me, I need to get a little bit more light on these trees, and then also to put in my tree trunks. So let's get some more light. I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow to my green mixture that I already have. Okay. A little ochre, maybe a touch of white. You can see a little more of that light coming in here. I don't want to divide it half and half, like right now is light on this side, but on my other painting, I definitely want to have more light on my tree. The angle coming down is a little more like this too. And a little bit more of it coming through here. And a little bit more, okay, smaller tree in here. And a medium green kind of coming down through here. Sometimes I like to have the canvas come through. Other times, like with the trees here, it's a little bit, to me, not enough coverage for that dark in there. So I'm just kind of putting a little bit more dark. I'm also looking at this shape, a lot more dark down here. Okay, so let me get some tree trunks in there, and that will help me also shape up my tree a little bit more too. I take a really small brush, and I like a lot of the signelli and warm grays. So I kind of just put that into my already green mixture. I want to get it light enough, maybe a little bit warmth on there. I try to use the colors that I already have and just add to it. Okay. So, with tree trunks too, you don't want to, you just want to be careful that you don't space them evenly. There's a little more on each of this. You want to space them out differently so it doesn't look like soldiers lining up. You want to have some that are a little bit thicker. You want to have some that are a little bit thinner. So I'll overlap that area there. You can always put something in and then be like, oh geez, I should move that over a bit. So I need to move that pom-pom kind of over on that tree. So these trees kind of connect up here with smaller branches. I'm just going to add that in right there. And then sometimes you want it to be a little bit fatter tree trunk on one of them and then thinner on the other too. So even just adding that in, the trees you can get a little bit more shape there. Sometimes you have to, go all the way to the end. Partial tree trunks look good too. So on this side, I don't quite have the color I want on this yet. So, and you can see right here, it's super wet. So I'm going to work on this a little bit more and have that dry. So let's put a little more of the top here, make this tree area bigger. I'm also going to go back and redesign a little bit that back color of the tree. So right in here, you can keep kind of going in. So, all right, let's change the shape. How do I want this shape to be? I think it's a little bit thinner on this side. So what I do is I just kind of come back in here and reshape. Same side over here too. Let's reshape it a bit. Just like with sky holes, you can have the back tree kind of pop into these back trees. So let's see if I can get a little bit more color variation here. It's starting to set up a little bit more. So I need to get some kind of a shape, this back tree down in here. I'm just reestablishing a little bit more of this blue. So I'm going to add some more ochre onto this green color here, a little bit more of the cobalt blue, and a little bit lighter. Let's see what we get here. So I'm just trying to create another little layer back here. So I think the purple is a little bit darker. So kind of the more colors you can get back here, the nicer. But needs to be a little bit more color. So I'll put some of the tree trunks back in here just so you can see a little bit more of it. So these little details help it. If you think your line is a little bit too big, it's easy to come in here and soften. Have some overlapping branches, a little thick on the top here. just soften a bit. So the cloud shape, I think I could also soften that cloud shape a bit. So it looks like I've got it a little bit too big up here. So it's easy enough to do. Let's come back with my ultramarine blue. And let's just shape it a little bit more. Oops, super dark. So I'm just coming back in here and shaping it again. So I had more of a kind of a, and this came up a little more puffy there. So again, I'm shaping it. A little bit too much down here. So I'm coming down with my blue here. Just changing it down. So it's a little bit pink in here. So maybe I can dull that down a bit. So I'm going to take my gray that I already have and put it into that pink color, or the warmth of that cloud. So I'll play with this kind of edge until I get my cloud looking where I want it to be. So all these edges at the end, see what I do with the same kind of brush, got white on it now. But all these edges can be softened with the trees also. You want to keep some of your edges hard, but you don't want them, especially in this back area of the sky, you want it to have a soft edge so the tree is going back into the sky, because this is not where I want your attention to be drawn. So this is a very sharp edge right here, you can see. So I'm softening that a bit. And I got a little bit of that green into my cloud here. So I'll have to go back and fix that a bit. I can also go back in here and soften these colors too. Blend these a little bit more. That's kind of a fun effect. A little more color or so the light's coming from the right side. Could be a little bit much. Tone it down a bit. So play with the shape over here. Give it a little bit more light. This area here, to me, It's a little bit more cool and dull than I had originally, but I still like the color here. It's a little bit greener. Not too bad though. I like that change. So I keep looking at the painting. This needs more color in here, but let's see. So this area to me is still a little bit too wide. So I'm just coming back that way. So my area is I'll try to put a little bit of light, but the warmth of this cloud reflecting in here and bringing you up to here is what I want you to look at. So I'll add a little bit of light right through here. I'm trying to pull you up and around this way. A little bit more light on this side of here. So this side to me needs to be a little bit darker. I'm going to transition over. I don't want the same value in the back there. So we're getting there. Now put a little bit more definition in this marsh, and then I think I'll be finishing up soon. It's not completely done, but I think it gives you a good indication of how to start. Too green. Okay. Just want to get a little more color variation over here. This is going to have to be deepened over here too. There's not enough pink. And so again, I'll just take that angled brush and just kind of make some reed-like indications kind of coming through here. I like having it overlap a bit. The area where the water is here. And then likewise, I don't want to do all the straight line here, so I'm going to work that again. With that hand in here. Work on the other side. So, I mean, you can really kind of go crazy with this stuff. I don't want to lose that dark reflection in there. So, I need to come back and just soften that a bit. The blue, I think, can go over there. Let's see. Which blue did I have? A little dark. So that coming in. So it's a little light, that value. And then, like I said, that warmth I had before, which was that cloud reflection. So I'm just going to just get a little bit of that in. It's nice to have kind of warms and cools in that water. So that warmth is coming through here. It's too light. Sometimes these brushes, the hairs come off really easy. It's a pretty strong, but I know a lot of times what I have to do is put it in pretty strong, and then I kind of work it. So you can see that warmth. Clean my brush again. What I'll do is I'll pull it down first, really gently, and over. Sometimes I pull too much out and have to reestablish it again. So, and I'm also looking at the shape that it makes. I want it to connect a little bit, so that's the warm here. I can push it more probably. This area can kind of come down a little bit more. So, but I think I'm going to stop there. So thank you so much for joining me today. And if you have any questions, you can find me on my website and ask me questions. And I do a monthly newsletter if you'd like to sign up for that too. But thanks for your time. Bye.
Thank you, Ellen, so much for doing the demo for us today. It was great.
Sure. Thanks a lot.